You mentioned the work that your student athletes put in during the national championship match. I want to borrow a quote from Cam Rass with men's soccer. And he told me one time that in any match, there are problems on the field that have to be solved on the field and from the field, meaning it takes the student athletes in the mix of things to figure things out, organize, and then come on out the other side of it. Tell me about one of the problems that Florida State presented and how was that solved by your team on the field?
Before I do that, let me tell you the bigger problem. The bigger problem was the coaching, and the players had to get past the coaching. So, yeah, Camras is exactly right. Having said that, of course, I remember. So let me just tell you, after the national championship, I had a conversation with Steve Nash, and I said, Steve, I don't feel good about our coaching. I don't feel good about how we handled the final. And he said, I understand. He said, what you did, however, was you created an environment that allowed your players to make decisions. You created an environment that you empowered them. You gave them confidence. You instilled a belief in them. And that's what Steve told me the morning after the national championship game. And that made me feel a little better. I know we do that. In sport, we have to do that in coaching. There is nothing more important than player leadership. There is nothing more important in college sports than student athlete leadership. And we've done a good job in that area. And historically, we've done a nice job in that area. And yeah, that certainly helped us. There's no question about that. But then to have to overcome coaching mistakes against the best team in the country in the national championship game on the fly, that's almost too much to ask of a student athlete. And yet our players came through. So Florida State, the challenge they presented is they play like a professional soccer team and not like a college soccer team. North Carolina is the greatest college soccer team ever. Their dynasty, they have 21 championships. They have over half of our total championships. That's a great college soccer game. We played Carolina in the semifinal. That's a great college soccer game. And our team played amazingly well against Carolina, as we have done many times with North Carolina. Florida State was not a college soccer team. They were a pro soccer team. They have 13 international players on their team. The discipline that they have, the patience they have, the ball control that they have is unlike anything you'll see in college soccer. And so it was to go from a great end-to-end college soccer game against North Carolina and to be able to play then essentially a pro team like Florida State was just very, very different in a 3-day period of time. And to give you an idea of how Florida State plays soccer, it's not the way I would have our team play. Quite honestly, I have great respect for Mark Krikorian and Florida State, but it's like watching basketball before the shot clock. It's like watching basketball when you didn't have 10 seconds to bring the ball over half court. So those games used to be like really tight, and the final score would be like 23-19, and in a college basketball game. And I think I played in a high school basketball game where the final score was something like 23-19. And we ran the 4-corner offense, and the coach said, don't ever shoot the ball, ever, unless you got a layup. And we would just hold the ball for minutes and minutes at a time. And we would pass it back and forth, and the audience would be asleep. And we're just trying to wear down the other team. And that's kind of how Florida State played it against us. They passed the ball around. They had a tremendous amount of possession. They didn't create many chances. They didn't get forward. They only had 8 shots on goal. They only had 8 shots. They only had 2 shots on goal. If you'd have told me before the game, we're going to play Florida State, and they were only going to have 8 total shots, and only 2 of them went on goal, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. But that's what they try to do. They try to wear you down with how disciplined and patient they are. And I don't know how our players handled it, quite honestly. I don't know that. I know that we started to put a little more pressure on them after we were down 1-0 in the second half, and that helped us. And that helped cause a turnover. And when the turnover happened, it went right to Kelsey Turnbow, and she jumped on it. And then, as Kelsey's done for us all year, cool, calm, composed, clinical finish, just about as cool as you could be. And that put wind in our sails. We had a great support from our fans in the stadium. We had a great support from our wonderful women's soccer alums that were there in the stadium. And their support helped push us over the finish line. We were kind of on fumes, and they helped push us over the finish line. Scoreless overtime. We go to penalty kicks. Florida State had won their previous 2 games, the quarterfinal and semifinal, in penalty kicks. We certainly weren't trying to go to penalty kicks. It just ended up that way. And then, golly, that's about as cool and calm a finishing as you could ask for. All 4 of our penalty kickers make their penalty kicks. Florida State doesn't, and we win the championship. So a lot of challenges for our players to overcome, including the coaching and including playing a professional soccer team like Florida State.
Well, 63rd minute, Jenna Neiswanger gets that goal for them, and you talk about how your team responded and started to get in some attacking flow. Next 10 minutes or so, I thought was one of the better offensive stretches of the game for your group. What did you see immediately after that goal that clicked with your team offensively, and as you mentioned, ultimately created more pressure and led to the chance that Turnbow was able to put away?
You know, I think at 0-0, the mindset is we're good. You know, keep doing what we're doing. You know, we're holding the number 1 seed to an even game. They scored a heck of a goal, hit it off the inside of the post, unsavable for our goalkeeper. And now you're down 1-0. And, you know, we have a saying in our team, we'd rather lose 2 or 3-0 than die a slow death 1-0. So we're not going to die a slow death. We're going to go at you, and going at you is going to give you opportunities to put a second one in against us. But we'd rather do that than try to die a slow death. And so, and we've had experience, you know, in our 3rd game of the year, we're at BYU, and BYU, it has the 2nd best home winning percentage of any team in the country behind Carolina Tar Heels. And they were the unanimous pick to win our conference. And we were down 1-0 at BYU. And once again, Turnbow scored and tied it up. And then Julie Doyle scored an incredible goal late to win it for us. And for me, that was that was the moment where we all looked at each other and went, well, I don't know. Maybe we're pretty good. In fact, one of the kids asked me on the plane, one of our freshman players, Sally Menti, she asked me, she goes, "Hey, coach, are we pretty good?" And I go, "I think we're pretty good." And that was our first moment. And what a great memory it was for the team and for me, because it turned out to be my 500th win, and, you know, put me in a group of just 3 coaches that have 500 or more wins. And but that was our first moment. We had to come from behind in that game. Our very next game, we played at Pepperdine, which is just a very tough place for us to win. When we won our first national championship in 2001, we only had 1 loss, and it was at Pepperdine. And now we have to go to Pepperdine again. We're up 1-0, they tie it up. We're up 2-1, they tie it up. Then they go ahead 3-2 late. Here we are down a goal late in the game at Pepperdine, a place that we can't seem to figure out how to win. And boom, we score a goal, and boom, Turnbow scores in overtime, and we win the game. We get on the plane, and now I got a few kids like, "Hey, coach, are we pretty good?" And I like, "Oh my God, I think we're pretty good." And, you know, so I think the experience of coming from behind at BYU, coming from behind at Pepperdine, helped us in the final. We didn't get behind in the four NCAA playoff games we played prior to the final. But when we got behind in the final, our team knows we're not dying a slow death. Let's go. And we put some pressure on their team, and we started to get a little momentum, and our fans got behind us. And how nice was it for us to play in front of fans? We hadn't done that all year until we got to the tournament. And so that fan support really pushed us, and the team just fed off of it. And again, we had to be opportunistic. If it weren't for an errant pass by Florida State and Turnbow jumping on it, we'd be sitting here talking about a great year where we lost in the championship. But we took advantage of it, and I said, when we had our ceremony on campus and we talked about the championship, I made a Ted Lasso reference. Ted Lasso, his big thing is believe, and we used some Ted Lasso quotes during the year. But I just think our team had tremendous belief. They just really believed that we could win the championship and we could beat any team, and that belief is just so powerful. It's vastly more important than any X and O thing that a coach can put together. It's vastly more important than any fitness test you could put together. It's vastly more important than any, skill training that you could do. The mental side of the game is where you win and lose, and that belief that we can still find a way to win. We had that, and that's what helped us in the championship game for sure.